You can go back to work now, Leonardo. Thanks for this creative meeting, but your ideas need more development. As I was leaving Dominique Belcourt's office, I could see that condescending look in her eyes as she subtly dismissed me. Something inside me said something was wrong, but I wasn't brave enough to voice my suspicions. At least, not that day. I'm Leonardo Moretti, a young designer born in a small corner of Milan, trying to bring my dreams to the glittering runways of Paris. I had been working as head assistant designer at Dominique's prestigious fashion house for only 18 months. This was an opportunity beyond dreams for any fashion designer. Looking back now, perhaps my dreams had blinded me. Belcourt Design House was one of the most respected names in the Paris fashion world. But after accepting Dominique's offer to become her business partner, I discovered that nothing was as it seemed. Competition in the fashion world was ruthless, I knew that. But sometimes it takes a bitter lesson to understand that your closest ally can stab you in the back. Leo, I wish I could say your path will be easy, but here, in the fashion world, there isn't room for everyone. You're talented, but I now better understand what Dominique actually meant. This wasn't advice. It was a warning. It all began the day I showed Dominique my Chromatic Dreams collection. This was my first major solo project, a groundbreaking men's clothing collection blending color spectrums and geometric textures from the Middle East to Africa to the Far East. What made the collection unique was its exploration of colors and patterns. Each piece contained details reflecting the designer's personal journey and experiences related to his LGBT+ identity. Interesting concept, said Dominique, briefly glancing at my sketches and fabric samples. But I don't think the market is ready for this. It's a bit too experimental. My heart was broken at that moment. But worse was yet to come. When 3 months later, I experienced the biggest shock of my life. Alessandro, my assistant and closest friend, had entered my studio with great excitement. "Leo, you need to see this," he said, holding the latest issue of a fashion magazine. "Isn't this your collection?" As I held the magazine, the blood in my veins froze. Dominique Belcourt's new vision, Chromatic Dreams, to be introduced at Paris Fashion Week. Under the headline were near-exact copies of designs I had worked on for months. Only small changes had been made to the color palette. Some textures had been simplified. But any fashion expert could immediately see these were my designs. "It can't be. This is impossible." The words caught in my throat. Alessandro touched my arm. "This is disgraceful, criminal. You could sue her." But I knew the fashion world. Here, filing a lawsuit against a famous designer, especially as a young designer who was openly gay and whose position in the industry wasn't yet solidified, could mean the end of your career. Dominique's power and connections in the fashion world could destroy everything I had. "What am I going to do?" I said, tears now streaming from my eyes. "Collect evidence, Leo," said Alessandro. "If this is war, you need to be fully equipped." That day, I made a decision. If Dominique could be bold enough to steal my designs, I had to be just as bold to fight for my rights. "But how can I prove that I showed her my collection?" I asked Alessandro, sitting in the middle of my sketches, spread on the floor of my small Paris apartment. Alessandro, sipping hot espresso from a cup, said, "Bring out your original sketches. The notes in your own handwriting, the first drawings. These will show that you created the collection before her." I started rummaging through drawers to find my sketches, but a worry clouded my mind. What if they don't believe me? What if Dominique claims she drew the sketches before me? "Then secure your position," said Alessandro, typing something on his computer. "Install small security cameras in your studio and record every meeting with Dominique from now on." I nodded with fear and hesitation. "I don't know, Ale. Is this even legal?" "Leo, This woman stole the work of your life. You need to do what's necessary to protect yourself. That same night, I installed hidden cameras in my studio. Small, almost invisible devices were placed behind artworks, on top of the bookshelf, and even inside the artificial flower arrangement on the sewing table. If Dominique visited me again, everything would be recorded. And just as I hoped, Dominique made an unexpected visit to my studio 2 days later, accompanied by Jean-Philippe, a senior editor from a fashion magazine. "Leonardo," she said with fake warmth, "I have great news for you. Jean-Philippe is going to do a preview for our new collection, Chromatic Dreams." Trying to swallow the lump in my throat, I asked, "Your collection?" "As I understand it, most of the collection is based on my sketches." Dominique's smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly recovered. Turning to Jean-Philippe, she said, "As you can see, some of my staff still struggle with understanding basic design concepts." She turned to me, her voice ice cold. "Leonardo, your sketches may be inspirational, but the collection is entirely my vision. And these drawings on the wall?" She pointed to the design sketches I had created that were still hanging on my working wall. "These clearly draw from my original ideas." My blood froze at that moment. Dominique wasn't just stealing my collection, she was trying to make it look like I had copied her ideas. After our first meeting in her office, she had examined my designs, taken the main elements, and presented them as if the original ideas were hers. I don't understand," I began to stammer, but Dominique cut me off. "Leonardo, if you want to develop as a designer, you need to create your own original concepts. Drawing inspiration from others' work won't help you stay in this business long." Jean-Philippe gave me a pitying look. "It can be difficult for newcomers," he said. "But Dominique is right. You must find your own voice." After they left my studio, I checked the recordings with trembling hands. Everything was there. Moments where Dominique presented my designs as her own, her examining my sketches, and scenes where she belittled me in front of Jean-Philippe. But would this be enough? The following weeks were like a horror movie for me. I continued working as an assistant in Dominique's office, but I was also gathering evidence. I recorded audio in meetings, saved emails, and even secretly had conversations with a designer working in Dominique's department who knew the inside story. This designer, Sophie Girard, confirmed that on the day Dominique first saw my designs, she instructed her assistants to delete all meeting notes and remove all evidence from the design department. Dominique came to the office and said, "I've perfectly developed Leonardo's sketches. We're going to take Paris by storm," Sophie had whispered to me when we secretly met on the back stairs of the office building. Most of us knew what that meant, but no one had the courage to say anything. "Why are you telling me now?" I asked. Sophie's gaze was determined. "Because I've witnessed her do this before. 3 years ago, she stole a male intern's collection. Gave him no credit. The kid was completely erased from the fashion world." Tears appeared in her eyes. I can't stay silent this time. Sophie's testimony was important, but I knew I needed more to bring down Dominique. Paris Fashion Week was rapidly approaching, and the Chromatic Dreams collection had become one of the most anticipated presentations of the week. One morning when I arrived at my studio, a surprise was waiting for me. There was a large package in front of my door with no sender information. Inside was a black notebook, along with a USB drive. The first page of the notebook contained a handwritten note. "Leonardo, this is Dominique's private design notebook. I probably shouldn't have taken this, but honestly, she shouldn't have taken your designs either." On the USB is an audio recording of a meeting where she admits to developing the collection from your sketches. Hope it helps. Signed, a friend. With trembling hands, I plugged the USB into my computer. The recording was of a meeting Dominique had with her design team. Her voice was crystal clear. "Leonardo's sketches are exactly what we need. His ethnographic research, color studies, saved us months. Of course, no one will know about his contributions, and it's very important that it stays that way. Understood? Everyone in this room will keep the secret, or it will be the end of your career at Belcourt Design House. I was fighting back tears as I listened to the recording. I felt both relieved and betrayed. I immediately called Alessandro. Ale, I have evidence. Dominique really did steal my designs. Great! Alessandro shouted. What will you do now? Hire a lawyer? I took a deep breath. No, I have a better idea. I'm going to reveal the truth in front of everyone at Paris Fashion Week. 2 days before the opening of Paris Fashion Week, Dominique was hosting a special invitation-only event for the introduction of the Chromatic Dreams collection. The most important names in the fashion world, editors from the biggest magazines, social media influencers, and leading industry buyers would be there. I hadn't been invited, but thanks to Sophie, I managed to get in as service personnel. My heart was racing wildly. In my pocket was a small flash drive, all my evidence, camera recordings, and audio files. Dominique was circulating around the hall, taking credit for my ideas as she presented them to the invitees, while I secretly moved about in a waiter's uniform. Her smile, that fake grace, it made me sick to my stomach. As she prepared to make her speech, I approached the technical director. From the head designer, I said, extending the flash drive. Last-minute changes. They need to be uploaded before the presentation starts. The man took the flash drive and plugged it into the computer. Which slides will change? All of them, I said with determination. This is a completely new presentation. The technical director frowned but didn't say anything. As a waiter, my job was just to relay instructions. A few minutes later, I returned, retrieved the flash drive, and began waiting at the edge of the stage. When Dominique stepped on stage to introduce the collection, the hall was completely full. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, today I am honored to present something special to you. The Chromatic Dreams collection is the result of a journey that transcends the boundaries of color and culture. These designs... As Dominique was speaking, the first slide appeared on the giant screen behind her. But this wasn't the presentation she had prepared. This was camera footage from my studio. Moments where Dominique examined my sketches, lied to Jean-Philippe, and instructed her team to hide the truth. Dominique froze, looked at the screen, then turned back to the crowd. It seems there's a technical issue, she said, her voice trembling. But the slides continued to change. Here were my original sketches, complete with dates and notes. Here were Dominique's meeting audio recordings. Here was Sophie's written statement. Shocked murmurs began to rise in the hall. Fashion critics looked at each other in astonishment, pulling out their phones to record the event. Dominique tried to quickly leave the stage, but I was no longer hiding. I removed my waiter's jacket and stepped onto the stage. My name is Leonardo Moretti, I said into the microphone, my voice echoing through the hall. And Chromatic Dreams is my design. Every piece, every stitch, every color combination. These are my works that took years. Dominique Belcourt stole my collection and put her signature on it. The hall suddenly erupted in chaos. Flashes were popping. People were standing up, some in shock, others shouting in anger. I'll never forget that chaos. Dominique ran towards me, her face crimson with rage. How dare you, she hissed. Your career is over, do you understand? I'll never let you work in this industry again. I smiled, no longer afraid. Maybe you're the one who won't be working, Dominique, because now everyone knows the truth. That chaotic night at Paris Fashion Week changed my life forever. The next morning, the incident was on the front pages of all fashion magazines. Belcourt scandal, young designer's collection stolen. Shocking betrayal in the fashion world. Leonardo Moretti, the true designer, emerges. While hiding in Alessandro's apartment, my phone was ringing non-stop. Journalists, fashion critics, even a few famous fashion houses, all wanted to talk to me, to hear my story. What will you do now? Asked Alessandro, pointing to the newspaper in front of me. On the front page was a large photograph of our confrontation at Paris Fashion Week. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe I should go back to Italy and start everything over. Just then, my phone rang again. An unknown number. Hello? I said hesitantly. Leonardo Moretti? The woman's voice on the phone was determined and powerful. I'm Helene Weber, creative director of Maison Lumière. I caught my breath. Maison Lumière was one of the most respected and progressive fashion houses in Paris. I heard about the events last night, Helene continued, and I saw your designs. Impressive. Especially your use of color and the blending of cultural references. I'll get straight to the point. Would you like to present your collection under our roof? At that moment, my knees gave way. I looked at Alessandro, my mouth hanging open. But my collection isn't ready. I mean, Dominique had produced some pieces, but most are still in sketch form. Then let's finish them, Helene said decisively. Can you be ready in 2 weeks? We can arrange a special presentation on the closing day of Paris Fashion Week. My eyes filled with tears. Yes, I said, my voice trembling. I can be ready. The next 2 weeks were the most intense and rewarding days of my life. Together with the team at Maison Lumière, we brought each piece of my Chromatic Dreams collection to life. Unlike Dominique's version, I stayed true to my original vision. Bold color combinations, cultural references, and most importantly, small details paying homage to the LGBT+ community. On the last day of Paris Fashion Week, my collection was exhibited in Maison Lumière's iconic salon. Before the fashion show, I made a brief speech to the crowd. Being here today is an important moment for me, not just as a designer, but also as a human being, I said, my voice now sounding confident. A few weeks ago, I discovered that my designs had been stolen. But it wasn't just my designs, but also my story, my identity, and my voice that had been stolen. I saw Sophie in the crowd, her eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Besides her were other designers I knew and didn't know. All had come to support me. This collection is not just about fabric and stitches. This is a journey, a struggle, and most importantly, a comeback story, I continued. There's magnificent creativity inside each of us, and no one can take that away from us. At the end of the fashion show, I received a standing ovation. Fashion writers were referring to me as the discovery of the year and the bold new voice of the fashion world. As for Dominique Belcourt, she was forced to sell Belcourt Design House after the scandal. I never met her again, but I heard she left Paris and started living a quiet life in the south of France. Now, 3 years later, I've established my own fashion house. Casa di Leonardo has become a brand with showrooms in Milan and Paris, known for its original, inclusive, and bold designs. Sophie became one of my head designers, and Alessandro continues to be both my business partner and closest friend. Without the injustice Dominique did to me, my hidden camera recordings, and my courage, perhaps my career would have ended before it even began. But sometimes, even in the darkest moments, the power of truth and belief in your own worth can carry you much further than you might think. In each of my new collections, as a small reminder, I sew in a label. Truth is the most beautiful fabric. Because in the fashion world, trends come and go, but honesty and originality are always in style. Last week, while working in my Paris atelier, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, the person standing before me surprised me, Dominique Belcourt. I hadn't seen her in 3 years, and time had changed her. The sharp looks and arrogant posture were gone. She looked softer, perhaps more genuine. "Leonardo," she said, her voice low and hesitant. "Could we talk?" I let her in, curious and a little uneasy. "First, I want to apologize," she said, stirring her coffee in the small office area where we sat. "What I did is unforgivable. I stole from you, belittled you, and tried to ruin your career. I listened to her silently. I wasn't expecting this apology. Why? I finally asked. Why did you steal my collection? You were already successful, recognized. Dominique took a deep breath. Fear, she said simply. My recent collections weren't selling well. Critics were saying my creativity was exhausted. And then you came along, young, fresh, full of original ideas. When I saw your work, I felt like I was seeing the end of my own career. I sipped my coffee, taking a moment to think about her. And me being gay? Was that also a factor? Dominique's eyes locked with mine. Yes, she said honestly. Even in the fashion world, there are some prejudices. I thought your open identity might make you vulnerable in certain circles. I thought no one would believe you. But you were wrong, I said calmly. She nodded. Yes, I was very wrong, and I paid the price for it. But what's really important is your success. Now the whole world knows how talented you are. After Dominique left, I looked at the Paris view from my window. 3 years ago, I had come to this city with a dream, to make a name in the fashion world, and to live without hiding who I am. The journey had developed in ways I never expected, but perhaps that's exactly how it needed to be. I spent that night in my atelier, making drawings for my new collection. I named this collection Forgiveness, symbolizing a transition from the dark shadows of the past to the bright lights of the future. Because in the fashion world, trends come and go, but creativity, honesty, and being yourself are always in fashion. Today, Casa di Leonardo has become a global brand with showrooms in Milan, Paris, London, and New York. My collections carry not just beautiful clothes, but also a story, a stance, and a message. In each of my designs, I proudly carry traces of my own identity. Last month, I returned to the Italian town where I spent my youth. There, I organized a workshop for young people who wanted to learn fashion design. Among them were a few young people in whose eyes I saw the same dreams. Just like me, young people dreaming of another life, another world. Everyone will tell you what you can't do, I told them. Your identity, where you come from, how you look, they'll use these to limit you. But remember, true beauty lies in being yourself and telling your own story. Then, at the end of the workshop, I gave each of them a badge specially designed by me. On the badge was a detail from my first collection, and underneath a small text, Autenticità, sempre in moda. Authenticity is always in fashion. Alessandro comes to my Paris office every evening at sunset to take me home. Sometimes, on our way home, we walk along the Seine River. Crossing the bridges, I look at the lights reflecting in the waters of the river and think, life, just like fashion, can sometimes be cruel. People can steal from you, belittle you, even target your identity. But if you stay true to the truth, believe in your own worth, and show the courage to raise your voice, eventually you will be the winner. And sometimes, in the most unexpected moments, life gives you a second chance. A chance to forgive, heal, and create anew. Embracing this chance is perhaps the greatest victory. In the fashion world, fabrics and colors constantly change, but style, true style, is timeless, just like true stories.